This is the 7th day of the September 1980 7-day session. And today we will read from and comment on the Zen teaching of Wang Po, taken from the transmission, the Zen teaching of Wang Po on the transmission of the mind, translated by John Blofeld. These sayings, sermons, as they're called, or talks, anecdotes, and dialogues were compiled by one of his students who was a great scholar and also at times a governor of a province, great devotee of Wang Po. And fortunate for us, he asked all manners of questions. That's how you can get at the teacher, by asking questions. At the teaching, then both teacher and student have to work hard. The great Zen master, Si Yun, that was another of his names, lived below the vulture peak on Mount Wang Po. They all lived on mountains in those times. Wonder who's living on those mountains right now. In this district of Kawan, which forms part of the prefecture of Hongqiao. He was third in the direct line of descent from Wenang, the sixth patriarch, pupil of a fellow disciple of Wu Hai, Kyakujo. Holding in esteem only the intuitive method of the highest vehicle, which cannot be communicated in words, he taught nothing but the doctrine of the one mind, holding that there is nothing else to teach, and that both mind and substance are void, and that the chain of causation is motionless. Mind is like the sun journeying through the sky and emitting glorious light, uncontaminated by the finest particle of dust. Even though it shows up, it illumines, it irradiates each particle of dust. To those who have realized the nature of reality, there is nothing old or new, and conceptions of shallowness and depth are meaningless. Conceptions are meaningless. Conceptions of old and new. There's no conception of old and new, then everything is new. Those who speak of it do not attempt to explain it, establish no sects, and open no doors or windows to make propaganda. That which is before you is it. Begin to reason about it, and you will at once fall into error. You will at once fall into reasoning. Which does not mean that there is not room for reasonable thinking, rather than all this unreasonable thinking that's going on based on notions and ideas and superstitions. Once one has seen into truth, reason flows out of it. This true mind uses reason. Only when you've understood this will you perceive your oneness with the original Buddha nature. Therefore, his words were simple, his reasoning direct. Here it comes. His reasoning was direct. Didn't mean he couldn't reason properly. His way of life exalted, and his habits unlike the habits of other men. Disciples hastened to him from all quarters, looking up to him as to a lofty mountain, and through their contact with him awoke to reality. Of the crowds which flocked to see him, there were always more than 1,000 with him at a time, and so forth. Our master said, those who desire progress along the way must first cast out the dross acquired through heterogeneous learning. He particularly referring to Buddhist scholars who abounded in China at that time, and in India still abound. And we're now in this country developing Buddhist scholars. Above all, they must avoid seeking for anything objective or permitting themselves any sort of attachment. We talked about attachment, and we're talking about repentance resolution. Just to say, I'm not going to attach myself, I'm going to cut my attachments, is specious reasoning. What's underneath it is fear of no attachments, and that fear needs to be faced, rather than the cutting of attachments with the underlying disease festering on. To see the fear in attachment, to see how one lives, without immediately wanting to do this and that about it, get rid of this, or take these steps. This is already disturbing the clarity of observation, of how one lives superficially and deeply, to understand this mind, this body-mind, profoundly. Having listened to the profoundest doctrines, they must behave as though a light breeze had caressed their ears. A gust had passed away in the blink of an eye. This is referring to those who just go to listen to profound doctrines, or read, study them, memorize them. By no means may they attempt to follow such doctrines. There is no doctrine to be followed. There's nothing to be followed. To act in accordance with these injunctions is to achieve profundity, to see the truth of them and to act out of this truth, out of the seeing of truth. To act out of seeing what is false. Not in any judgmental sense, but understanding what is false. What is division? What is confusion? From the days when Bodhidharma first transmitted naught but the one mind, there has been no other valid Dharma. Pointing to the identity of mind and Buddha, he demonstrated how the highest forms of enlightenment could be transcended. Assuredly, he left no other thought but this. If you wish to enter by the gate of our sect, this must be your only Dharma. If you expect to gain anything from teachers of other doctrines, what is the purpose in coming here? So it is said that if you have the merest intention to indulge in conceptual thinking, behold, your very intention will place you in the clutch of demons. Similarly, a conscious lack of such intention, or even a consciousness that you do not have such intention, will be sufficient to deliver you into the demon's power. Sometimes when something is pointed out to someone in Doksan, there's immediately a defense. No, I'm not like that. No, you misunderstand me. No. But this may just be during Doksan, maybe something of the word will remain, and when one does not feel oneself in the firing line, which one never is, that's your projection. There's no one firing there. It may sound like that. But this is what one brings into the room. This fear of being fired at from long conditioning. And of course, if one is fired at, one holds up the shield. Why? What is one defending? One doesn't want to be misunderstood. But has one listened quietly enough to find out whether one has been misunderstood or not? Or will one just take what has been said, listen to it, and examine whether it is so or not? Not immediately dismissing it out of hand, nor immediately adopting it and saying, yeah, she must be right because she sits there in front of that broken screen. I've got a secret for you, that screen is broken. It's in 2 pieces. Because no one has dared to mend it yet. It once toppled over, but this person wasn't sitting there at the time. So to examine, not to accept anything at face value, but to look. Somebody says something that smart, sounds harsh to the ears, or that one wants to ward off or prove wrong. Give it a chance, look at it. Maybe there's something in it, maybe not. If there isn't anything in it, well, then nothing can be done with it. If there is something in it, can one observe oneself in the light of what has been said? Doesn't have to immediately result in a repentance ceremony. But they will not be the demons from outside. Those that you're delivered into when you have a conscious intention, or you say you have no conscious intention, or whatever. These demons are not from outside. They will be the self-creations of your own mind. The only reality is that bodhisattva, it's in quotation marks. That bodhisattva whose existence is totally unmanifested, even in a spiritual sense. The trackless one. The resultless one. It's said of one of the bodhisattvas that whenever he said Flowers would sprout all over and birds would come. And then one day, no birds even noticed him anymore. If ever you should allow yourselves to believe in the more than purely transitory existence of phenomena, did you get it? If ever you should allow yourselves to believe in the more than purely transitory existence of phenomena, in the body or in this outside world, or in the mind, all of which is one ongoing process, you will have fallen to a grave error known as the heretical belief in eternal life. And don't we all long for it? In one form or other. But if, on the contrary, you take the intrinsic voidness of phenomena to imply mere emptiness, then you will have fallen to another error, the heresy of total extinction, which apparently abounded at Wang Po's time. People who affirmed that nothing existed and precipitated themselves into this state of voidness and lingered there, awaiting their end, shunning the world, which was called elusive, or the Indians call it Maya. Gautama Buddha refuted two sorts of misunderstanding. The notion that enlightenment will lead to the perception of a universal substance, of something, composed of particles, which some hold to be gross and others subtle. How is it possible that Gautama Buddha, who denied all such views as I have mentioned, and I skipped several of those, so not to burden a mind with all these views that were prevalent at the time, and today too, it's old wine in new bottles. How is it possible that Gautama Buddha, who denied all such views as those that I have mentioned, could have originated the present conceptions of enlightenment? But as these doctrines are still commonly taught, people become involved in the duality of longing for light and eschewing darkness. Don't know if I'm pronouncing this right. In their anxiety to seek enlightenment on the one hand, and to escape from the passions and ignorance of corporal existence on the other, they conceive of an enlightened Buddha and unenlightened sentient beings as separate entities. Continued indulgence in such dualistic concepts as these will lead you to rebirth among the 6 orders of being. Conceptions will lead you to rebirth. It's always conceptions that are reborn, that continue. Notions, ideas, theories is what is being reborn. And all the desires and feelings that go with them. Continued indulgence in such dualistic concepts will lead to your rebirth among the 6 orders of beings. Life after life, eon upon eon, forever and forever. There's no end to thoughts giving birth to new thoughts. Which are always old, just a little bit different. But they always come from old thoughts, endlessly. And why is this thus? Because of falsifying the doctrine that the original source of the Buddhas is that self-existent nature. Let me assure you again, that the Buddha dwells not in light, nor sentient beings in darkness, for truth allows no such distinctions. The Buddha is not mighty, nor sentient beings feeble, for the truth allows no such distinctions. What is feebleness? If you don't give it a name, you don't know what it is, but you live with it, and live through it, and live beyond it in living through it. The Buddha is not enlightened, nor sentient beings ignorant, for the truth allows no such distinctions. Yeah. It is all because you take it upon yourself to talk of explaining Zen, and explaining is capitalized. As soon as the mouth is opened, evils spring forth. Yeah. People either neglect the root and speak of the branches, or they neglect the reality of this world and speak only of enlightenment. Or else they chatter of cosmic activities. And don't we hear chatter of cosmic activities these days? In this day where science is at its height, superstition is also at its height. Talking about things, well, I don't know. Or else they chatter of cosmic activities leading to transformations while neglecting the substance from which they spring. That's always a good way of proceeding once one becomes aware that one is really off on a cosmic ray. What's the source of this talk? This belief, this wanting to hear something miraculous. We also yearn for the miraculous encounter of the 10th kind, or I didn't see that one, so I can't talk about it. Saw the preview of it though, and it was enough. A close encounter of the 3rd kind. Indeed, there's never any profit in discussion. I would question that. I wouldn't make a summary statement like that. It depends on what this discussion is like. If there's really delving into, needing to find out, and going together into something, questioning it, and that there is no urge for self-importance, for winning, what we were talking about yesterday, about these monks arguing about the flag, or the monks arguing about the cat. No profit in such discussions, surely. Only heaping confusion to this mountain of confusion, which is already in existence. Once more, all phenomena are basically without existence, conceptualized existence, which fixates them. Like when you develop a picture, you put it into fixative, and then it stays. At the particular exposure, it stays there. You fixate it. and thoughts fixate things which are in flux. Cannot be fixed or arrested. By the time you explain or describe them, have already changed. Not just things, but people. Even though since they are fixated in their thoughts, they sound pretty much today as they did yesterday. But don't assume it. Look first and listen. Something may have changed. A person may have become unstuck, unbeknownst to you. So always look before you leap. All phenomena are basically without existence, though you cannot now say that they're non-existent. Another concept. Karma, having arisen, does not thereby exist. Invariably, unchangeably. Many people complain about their heavy karma. There's some unchanging burden they're carrying. Karma changes from instant to instant. It is not fixed. Karma destroyed does not thereby cease to exist. Like Sixth Patriarch, one awakened thought, a sentient being, an ordinary being is a Buddha. One ignorant thought, a Buddha is a sentient being, an ordinary being. And again, this fox man who was delivered from being a fox by understanding that the enlightened person does not ignore what comes up. Old thoughts, old habits, which is karma. Even its root does not exist. What is the root of karma? Where does it all come from? Does it have a root? What's below the root? Where does everything come from? Can you know? Even its root does not exist, for that root is no root. Moreover, mind is not mind, for whatever that term connotes is far from the reality it symbolizes. So be careful when using words. Always aware that the word is not it, which is still a word. Form, too, is not really form. Always changing. Even that photograph, which was put into this fixing solution, it turns yellow after a while. The colors become pretty murky. So if I now state that there are no phenomena and no original mind, you will begin to understand something of the intuitive Dharma, silently conveyed to mind with mind. Since phenomena and no phenomena are one, form and emptiness are one. There is neither phenomena or no phenomena, and the only possible transmission is to mind with mind, which is no mind. When a sudden flash of thought occurs in your mind, and you recognize it for a dream or an illusion, then you can enter into a state reached by the Buddhas of the past. Not that the Buddhas of the past really exist, or that the Buddhas of the future have not yet come into existence. Above all, have no longing to become a future Buddha. Your sole concern should be, as thought succeeds thought, to avoid to cling to any of them. Which means attention, attention, attention. Wakefulness, awareness. Without judgment. Nor may you entertain the least ambition to be a Buddha here and now, which is creating oneself another thought form. Even if a Buddha arises, do not think of him as enlightened or deluded, good or evil. Hasten to rid yourself of any desire to cling to him. Cut him off in the twinkling of an eye. On no account seek to hold him fast, for 1,000 locks could not stay him, nor 100,000 feet of rope bind him. This being so, valiantly strive to banish and annihilate him, which means to remain uninfluenced, which does not mean not to listen to what he may point out and to see whether one can see the truth of it in oneself. The truth that the Buddha sees in himself is no use to you if you don't see it in yourself. You see it in yourself, there is then no cleavage, no distance, no division, no Buddha in self at that instant of seeing. Because the moment the thought rushes in, am I a Buddha now? You know what happens. The clutch of the demons, which are not outside of oneself. Let's read this from this selection. Questioner. Did Dipankara Buddha, he was the Buddha with whom Shakyamuni Buddha supposedly eons and eons ago was dwelling, and with whom, in whose presence he attained enlightenment and so forth, the Buddha before the Buddha, not according to our line, well, it doesn't matter. It's all creation of this mind anyway. Still within the realm of thought. Did Dipankara Buddha attain his intuition of reality within a single 500-year period or not? Apparently that's what's said about him. That man really read. Did he really attain his intuition within a single 500-year period or not? And Huang Po, there is no attaining it within such a period. You must never forget that the so-called attaining of intuition implies neither a withdrawal from daily life nor a search for enlightenment. You've just to understand that time periods have no real existence. What are time periods? Other than creations of thought. Thinking of yesterday, all I did wrong and all I did right, all that was so wonderful, and then transferring it onto what one thinks is the future, not wanting that to happen again for sure, but wanting that to come back soon. So we create time in thinking. There's no thought in the mind. Is there time? You just have to understand that time periods have no real existence. Hence, the attainment of the vital intuition occurs neither within nor without a 500-year period. Questioner persists. Is it not possible to attain the omniscience in which all the events of past, present, and future are known to us? And don't we all have this inkling of a longing for this omniscience to see all the past and all the future? So many fairy tales of people who saw all the past and all the future. You know what the past is, don't you? Division, sorrow, strife, anger, jealousy, envy, and happiness here and there. And this is what continues if one doesn't see into the root of this all and frees oneself from that by understanding the source of it. If one doesn't, that is the stream of past, present, and future. Do you need to be omniscient, in quotation marks, to see that? The details may vary. The weapons may vary. The numbers of people annihilated at one stroke may increase. But it's the same warfare that happened thousands of years ago because of this division into mine and yours, this urge to have power over others, to have followers and subjects, or to worship a leader. Is it not possible to attain the omniscience in which all the events of past, present, and future are known to us? Wang Po, there's absolutely nothing which can be attained. Questioner, how long is a cycle of 500 yugas? And Huang Po must have been a benign moment when Rinzai came to him and asked him what was the essence of Buddhism. He was just beaten 3 times, thrown out. No words at all. Wang Po, one such period should be ample time for you to become. It's beautiful. Should be ample for you to become a liberated sage. For when Dipankara Buddha attained his intuitive knowledge of the Dharma, there was not really a grain of anything attainable, and neither is there today. Can this grasping mind come to rest, if even for an instant? Here's another interesting inquiry. Questioner: if the Buddha really dwells in matchless tranquility beyond the multiplicity of forms, how is it that his body yielded 84 pecks of relics. And don't laugh, these are being venerated throughout the Southeastern Asia, in stupas. We can't see into the truth of oneself, we have to venerate something. Not just in Buddhism, other religions that venerate bones. A bone is a bone is a bone. Lasts for a long time. That's the amazing thing about bones. Because they have to either lie in sand in the desert there in Africa. Amazing things are being dug up there. Millions and millions of years ago. Or else have to be embalmed, like in the pyramids, or properly kept. Also it's said that bones of enlightened ones have much greater durability. Don't laugh, it may be so. Don't laugh yet. Investigate it sometime, if you have a chance. Not so easy come by. Lama Govinda writes that when his guru there in Tibet, after he passed away, for 4 weeks that he was dressed up and sat there in his full robe, and for 4 weeks there was no odor emanating from this dead body. Well, what about Wangpo's answer? If you really think like that, you're confusing the transitory relics with the real. Questioner, are there really such things as sariras? It says in the footnote, Buddha relics. Or are they the Buddha's accumulated merits? Wangpo, there are no such things. They are not merits. Questioner, then why is it written, the Buddha relics are ethereal and subtle? The golden ones are indestructible. What does your reverence say to that? Wangpo, if you harbor such beliefs, why call yourself a student of Zen? Can you imagine bones in the void? The minds of all the Buddhas are one with the great void. What bones do you expect to find there? Questioner, but if I had actually seen some of these relics, what then? Wangpo, you would have seen the products of your own wrong thinking. Questioner, does your reverence have any of those relics? Please let us see them. Wangpo, a true relic would be hard to see. To find it, you would have to crush mighty Mount Sumeru to find dust, using only your bare hands. And you know what mighty Mount Sumeru stands for. It's the me. The tallest mountain in old mythology there was, the axis of the world, around which the world spun and spins, is that tall mountain of the me. Not just you or me and my me, everybody's me. The Master said, only when your mind ceases dwelling upon anything whatsoever will you come to an understanding of the true way of Zen. Questioning mu or who or this one mind, not knowing is not dwelling. If you dwell on the mu, you use it as a mantra. If it is a question, not knowing, how can there be any dwelling? You can only dwell on what you know. I may express it thus: the way of the Buddhas flourishes in a mind utterly freed from conceptual thought processes, while discrimination between this and that gives birth to a legion of demons. Again, this birth, this concept of birth. Discriminating between this and that as good or bad gives birth to a legion of demons. Can there be death to this legion of demons? Not calling up some new demons to kill the old, but seeing the process of the thought process. Not through thinking about it, but seeing it directly, at a glance. Finally, remember that from the first to last, not even the smallest grain of anything perceptible has ever existed or ever will exist. Meaning, fixed, imperishable, unchanging, which is the way of concepts. Questioner: but how can we prevent ourselves from falling into the error of making distinctions between this and that? We're always skipping things in here. This is not one thing after another as it follows, page by page. How can we prevent ourselves from falling into the error of making distinctions between this and that? Huang Po. By realizing that though you eat the whole day through, no single grain has passed your lips, and that a day's journey has not taken you a single step forward. Also by uniformly abstaining from such notions as self and other, do not permit the events of your daily lives to bind you, but neither withdraw yourselves from them. Only by acting thus can you earn the title of a liberated one. Never allow yourselves to mistake outward appearance for reality. And it depends on the seeing. There's no concept in the mind. Then the tree is just that. Because it is just that, we have 3 white ribbons around it, under the covered walkway. Avoid the error of thinking in terms of past, present, and future. Yesterday, today, tomorrow. The past has not gone. Well, if you remember it, it has gone. In your memory, it lingers. The present is a fleeting moment, and the future is not yet to come. When you practice Zazen, sit in the proper posture. Stay perfectly tranquil Even if you're shaking, can you stay perfectly tranquil in the midst of this shaking? Underneath the shaking? Can you? I say you can. Find out for yourself whether you do or not. And do not permit the least movements of your minds to disturb you. It doesn't say don't permit the least movements of your minds. Don't permit them to disturb you. And if there's an awareness that there has been disturbance, can there be just that without the disturbance disturbing you? There's a moment of awareness, mu, or hu, or one. Sit in the proper position. Stay perfectly tranquil. Do not permit the least movement of your minds to disturb you. Be diligent, be diligent. Of 1,000 or 10,000 attempting to enter by this gate, only 3 or 4, perhaps 5 pass through. Which immediately arouses the thought, doesn't it? Am I going to be one of those? 3 or 4 or 5? Yesterday, when it was read by Basui about perfect enlightenment, one person asked, what is this? Does this mean that the ego is completely gone? Why does one want to know? Does it help to work right now? Or do we need all the energy we have to work from moment to moment, where we are? To observe and maybe see through this ego. It's such an instant when there is no me. And there is no time. And then the thought of perfect enlightenment doesn't come up. Comes up when things get murky again. Then why not work right there? Whatever one's practice may be, in the midst of the murkiness. We will end here.